Welcome to the Between Two Ditches podcast. We're excited to be back with you today. And once again, we have the beautiful, gorgeous Miss Chasity Doss with us here. And we have, I don't know if I should say beautiful, gorgeous, I guess I'll say it. The beautiful, the gorgeous Evan Hurd as well. Evan, how are you?
Been doing great.
Praise the Lord. And I myself, Jacob Doss. And it is good to be with you today. Miss Chasity, how are you?
I'm doing really, really good. Staying warm with this snowy, icy weather. And, just having a day full of being stuck in the house with the babies and trying to make little small memories and meals all day long.
It has been something like that.
Survival mode.
Yeah. No, that ice was different, though. I haven't really experienced ice like that. That was about an inch thick of ice on the vehicle, and we poked our head out the door, and there was ice falling off the trees onto ice. It was a really cool sound that you don't hear very often. But thank God the power did not go out at our house. But Brother Evan, you've had to face a little bit of that today, huh?
I'm still just waiting on it to come back on, honestly.
My goodness.
The road is narrow, the voice is loud. Everybody pulling, lost in the crowd. Some say bend, some say break what's true. But I've set my eyes on something true. I won't be shaken, I won't be moved. When the lines get blurred, I choose the truth. I won't fall left, I won't fall right. I'm standing firm in a steady light, rooted deep, no compromise. I'm walking strong between two ditches. I stand. I won't fall, I won't fade. Firm foundation won't be moved. Patience, needless between two ditches. I stand my ground. I stand my ground. I stand, yeah. I stand my ground. I stand my ground. I stand my ground. Between two ditches. I stand my ground. I stand my ground. I stand my
Well, once again, we wanted to remind you, we have dove back into the Keeping It Between the Ditches Marriage Edition. For the month of February, we have decided to talk about marriage and everything that has to do with marriage. And we've got some exciting episodes lined up for the month of February. And this is part 2 of an episode that we have recorded the first half. And there has been a little space of time between then and now, but you probably would never know that. But I do want to just give a little bit of a refresher of the things we talked about. The big question that we got into, we got to looking, we got to researching on what is most likely to cause divorce in Christian marriages. And so our goal through this was to give some guardrails that will help us in the midst of these subjects. When these things come to pass, when these roadblocks come, what are some things that can help us to face these and get through these, and not just get through these alone, but get through these together. And so the first thing we talked about was unresolved conflict and poor communication. That was the number one result. Now, here again, we're dealing with statistics. These could be in the correct order, or maybe they're not 100% in the correct order. Either way, we know that all of these really can cause major issues. And so unresolved conflict and poor communication was number one. Number two, we talked about emotional neglect and drifting apart. Very practical, very real stuff. And then number three was infidelity, whether that be emotional or physical. And so today we're going to dive right back in. And so number 4, we're starting it off with a bang here. Sexual issues and unmet expectations. This is a real major issue in marriage today. This is what I would think one of those that really you probably don't hear mentioned a lot. Or if you walk through it, a lot of times people don't feel comfortable talking about it or mentioning it. But these two are very, very needful to discuss and to bring out, to get out on the table. So I believe there's a long list of causes for this about the sexual issues and unmet expectations, especially when it comes to sexual issues. That could be a span of time where a woman has just already given birth, or maybe there is sickness involved, or maybe there's a season where somebody's having to work a certain shift versus the other one working a shift, and you're missing each other all the time. And so these things can really, really happen, and sometimes we don't even notice it. But I think to get to the bottom of the surface, we're going to have to split these two up just a little bit, and we'll bring them back together here in a minute. But let's talk about sexual issues first. I believe one guardrail that we can put up is give a reminder that this is God's gift to you. Enjoy it.
I agree.
You can enjoy it. Sometimes we have a view of sexual things negatively or dirty, or how the movies portray them, or how society portrays them. But in all reality, this is God's gift to marriage. And can we just rejoice for just a second that he gave this gift to us to celebrate in marriage? And so but I think one thing that is good is to communicate about this subject, because we don't know unless we ask, or unless they're willing to tell us, talking about our spouse. It could be that they've faced something growing up, and there's a lot of fright. There's a lot of, I'm trying to look for the right word here. A lot of, for lack of better words, PTSD. It could be, especially if they have faced, abuse or anything like that. And so unless those things are talked about, then the other person can't know.
Right.
What do you think, Miss Jessie?
I'll say that it's very important for a husband and wife. This is something that God has given us. I think we take we get ahead of ourselves before marriage, and what's supposed to be honorable to the Lord, we do it not his way. And so we don't appreciate it as much when we get married. But if we will just wait, we would appreciate it so much more. But also you go through that honeymoon stage, and then you have kids, and then after that a woman goes through so much, like with her hormones and things. And something I learned that I didn't even know is that us women, we literally could go all day and not think about sex or anything. Like, that's something that we don't strive to just crave that, although we should in a sense. But I've learned that men, that's all they think about nonstop. And so, but something that I'm learning, I'm working through is like, if I think about you all day, or you're texting me, you are what we call heating, because we're a crock pot. Us women, we're crock pot. Y'all are microwaves, okay? So you're heating up the crock pot all day long. When you do that, when you're even postpartum or whatever, because I consider even breastfeeding a year later still being postpartum. I mean, I'm not even talking about the 6 weeks you're waiting to be cleared. But all the things, because, I just came out of that. Out of postpartum. So, but you going in, and it starts with that morning text. Love you, honey. Hope you slept good. Or for other women, they may wake up with their spouse and give each other a kiss and say, have a great day, or pray together, whatever the case may be. So you turned it on.
Yeah.
Turned on that crock pot. And then so throughout the day, you throw things in there, or even us women, we, just think about them, send them the text. They don't, men don't always have to be the initiators. We can initiate it too.
Come on.
So, we can enjoy it and want it just as much as men do. It's just getting there. A lot of us women, we have to train our brain, train ourselves to be that way, I guess you could say. Because once you become a mom, it's all about being a wife, being a mom, and doing the to-do list, and the sex is on the back burner. We kind of give our spouses the leftovers in a way, but it shouldn't be like that. We should go into it. And our children, I know Hannah was in our bed till Huntley was almost here. Huntley is still in her room, but not in her bed.
Thank God.
But, you do need your bed for you and your spouse. You need to have a safe place to go. And, I'll get on a rabbit trail with this stuff, but
It's all good.
you gotta keep, if you don't be intimate with your spouse and things, it's gonna cause problems. I mean, your tension, it's like a release thing. You connect, and you just bond and love, and I can't think what it is, but y'all know what I'm talking about. And so so it just kind of just brings y'all back together, and so you need that.
But just to bounce back on one thing that you said, talking about women not thinking about it, do you think that's driven a little bit by society pushing back on women that think that way, or people that openly talk about thinking that way, that they get called those certain names and get labeled a certain way if they show that they have urges and stuff? Where men, it's just kind of a given thing, but with women, it's almost like, well, that makes you something bad. Just kind of the way society and all has treated it. I don't think it's as much that way now, but I mean, back in years past, like if a woman even mentioned that she had a thought like that, like she was immediately labeled a certain kind of way.
Yeah. Right. Definitely it's not mentioned openly in rooms, but now when you get with like your close friends and start talking about it, now that's when conversations arise. But it shouldn't be something we hide about. Like, we have we have young adults getting married and all the things. So they need to know the right ways to, love and things like that, instead of what society has showed them on it, because it's so much more special once you're married and you're a child of God, and like how honorable it is, and why, why God gave it to you, I guess.
Yeah, I love the conversation, and I love your honesty. And,
we probably need to cut a lot of that out.
And realness.
Probably too much.
No, I think it's great. And I just want to reiterate, it is needful. And it's something, honestly, listen, our schedules are all busy. We can throw all the excuses out there that we want to. We do this in many areas of our life. We'll put certain things in front of other certain things. And the truth of the matter is, how many times does our job or our work or our this, that, or the other get all the attention, and then we expect to come home and then, our spouse just climb right on us, She was talking about warming up the crock pot. That takes putting some investment in, right? That takes some effort being put in. And so that's making time. That's setting apart some time, putting some effort in, and that needs to be done. And so, guardrail number 2. Let's come back to this in just a second. Let's talk about unmet expectations for a second, and then we'll tie them together.
Okay.
I believe unmet expectations. You know what the number one cause for unmet expectations is? Unexpressed expectations. I believe oftentimes the unmet expectation is because they were unexpressed expectations.
Yeah.
Or they were expressed in a way that was so rude and so angry that why would they want to fulfill that anyway?
Right. Yeah.
I think oftentimes we just expect our spouse to just know, just to get it, just to, well, he should know that or she should know that. Well, the reality is, until we tell them, they're not going to know. And there is a right way and a wrong way to tell them. And that's why it's so important to have communication. But I think a guardrail in this area is to examine, is this unmet expectation, is it rooted in nitpicking? Sometimes we have this big expectation built up in our mind and we give no grace whatsoever. If it's not done exactly the way I wanted it, then I'm not accepting it. We didn't do it right. You remember the time you tell the story at the marriage conference sometimes about me doing the dishes. Mm-hmm. Tell that story.
So, so there was, there's times where your spouse tries to help you and things, but they just don't do it the way you would do it. Well, anyways, Jacob, he was being super sweet, and he went to do our dishes. He did do the dishes. But when I went to go and, put the dishes up, all the cups were right side up. They wasn't down, so nothing was clean because they were full of dirty water. But you know what? I could have done two different things. I could have, one, just flipped them over, rewashed them, told him thank you for, doing this, because I didn't ask him to do it. He just randomly did it. Or, number two, I could have got mad, threw a fit, and then how would that have escalated? So I bit my tongue, and I gave him a hug, and I don't know really what I did, but I know I didn't fuss at him. I don't think he knew that he did it wrong until probably years later.
Absolutely. And I'll give an illustration since she gave one, and this is, hopefully it don't break out right here.
Oh, boy.
Let's ask this question. How many of you have a spouse that they graciously, most generously wash the clothes? And we praise the Lord for that. There's nothing better than having your clothes washed, and better yet, even dries the clothes. And sometimes even takes a step further to fold the clothes. But where I really have an issue is
you
when...
You can't look at me while you say this, can you?
No, I cannot. Where I really have an issue, Brother Evan, beautiful, gorgeous Evan, is that whenever those folded clothes go directly back into the basket, that's where my problem lies. Because here's the problem with that. It never fails. The one piece of clothing I need is going to be
at the very bottom.
At the very bottom. And so for me to get there, I'm going to have to try to move every ounce of this clothing without messing anything up that she took the time, thank God, to fold. But now I've communicated. We're still praying on that one. So y'all help me pray.
I have many excuses for it. So
she does. But I'll be honest. At the end of the day, maybe I'm nitpicking. I don't know. But this is an unmet expectation. But in this area, it is not an uncommunicated expectation. It has been communicated several times.
Very much.
But, at the end of the day, thank God she does it, and praise the Lord for that. And so I realize she's got a lot on her plate. She's got kids to wrestle around with. Because one thing I will give you is that if you tried to fold clothes while kids are running around, I don't know why, but they love to come and grab the pile and sling it right off the couch.
No, that's not the issue.
Okay.
The issue was me not putting them up. So when I have to leave the room and leave them unattended, that's the issue.
Yeah, but...
And so then when you come home, I'm just like, I'm tired. I don't want to do this.
Yeah, so we'll move on to the next one. So here, let's tie this back together. So unmet expectations and sexual issues. So how do they tie in together? I'm going to give you the third guardrail. Love languages. Mm-hmm. This is how I believe they tie in together, and they're so close hand in hand, is because when you have unmet expectations, you are not desiring sexual intimacy, because you desire someone who meets your expectations. You desire someone that quote unquote fulfills you, if you will. And so when those expectations aren't being met, then it lowers that drive, if you will. And so that's why these love languages is a guardrail, because making sure you're putting effort in the right areas. For instance, now when you have an issue or something and you've communicated this issue and you say, you know what, I'm sorry, I'm going to make it up to her. Well, here's where we got to know the love language. If you go out and you buy flowers, you can't buy forgiveness, first of all. But if you do decide to go out and buy flowers or whatever, then you go give her those flowers. But let's say her love language is quality time. Well, you've just put a lot of effort in the wrong area, because those flowers don't mean nearly as much as you taking 30 minutes to an hour to sit down and watch TV together, watch a movie together, whatever the case may be. And so figuring out each other's love language is very valuable, especially in this area. Mike and Amy Edwards has a book that we often refer to called The Marriage Ring, and they use the analogy of putting gas in a car. They call it the love tank. And so if you're riding around with an empty tank, then you're not going to be wanting any of that sexual intimacy when you come home. But if you have spent some time and invested in the right areas, putting love in the tank, if you will, then you're a lot more likely to have that void filled.
But I'll also add, that is very, very solid. But I'm going to add that if there's no communication, as in, like, their love language. Let's say that, I am not this, but let's say I am the gift giver. So if you go and that's my love language, like, I get excited when you get me a gift. So you go, you get me something I've been talking about, we're fighting, we're feuding or whatever, or we have been for months or whatever. And then you go and try to, let me just go ahead and take care of this. I know what's going to make her happy. But then you don't communicate. Right. You're literally just stuffing it under the rug. And so that next little argument, everything's going to be pulled back up. So that $100, $200, $300 that you just spent, waste of money, honey. Right. It's very important to communicate, but also showing your action through the love language.
Right. That's a good word. Because what you're really doing oftentimes is postponing the conversation. Man, I really like that, because it's so true of how many times we say, well, we're just going to turn over a new leaf. Yeah. We're just going to forget it all and we're going to start new today. But if you really don't get that stuff out there and talked about and discussed, then you're setting yourself up to fail. Yeah,
because I don't know about a male, but a female, we are very emotional driven. So we hold on to those things forever. Forever. So no, I really try to do a good job, but I'm sure I failed. But we are emotionally driven and things like that. So as a woman, we have to have communication. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to say that we're in the wrong to get it right. Yeah, it's hard to do those things. But if you love your spouse and you want to proceed with your marriage, these are things that are very vital to work through.
Absolutely.
Okay. So can I jump in there for just a second? Yeah. So I think it's very widely thought that women are more emotional than men, but I don't think that's necessarily always true. What I would interject there and like to add, not that I'm trying to change or take away by any means, but add to it, is if you can make your home a safe space to where your man can, and to where he can show his emotion, and he doesn't have to be that macho, that tough as nails exterior that most men try to carry around. If you can give him a safe space where he can show that emotion, that will make so much more of a connection between you and your spouse. Because us as men, we are taught from the time we're 2 or 3 years old up until we're grown that we're not supposed to show emotion. We're not supposed to do this. You got to be tough. Oh, you fell down, just wipe it off and keep going. Yeah. And the more that you choke that stuff down, that's where I think a lot of the explosive of men in confrontation comes from, is because we've got a whole lot bottled up from every aspect of our life. But if you're the thing that lights that fuse, you're going to receive the blunt end of every bit of that.
Yeah.
So if you can give him a safe space to where he can do and talk about what he needs to talk about without fear of judgment, like, you're going to help him out. And I believe you're going to grow that relationship to a whole nother level that's not going to be possible until you get to that place.
That's solid. And I think as well, when you go into this, instead of saying you, why don't you start saying, why don't we work through this? Why don't, and ask each other as well, like, sit down, have that conversation. We do this often, is, hey, is there anything that I need to work on? Is there anything, I ask you, is there anything you need, vice versa, things like that. And that makes a world of a difference. But also accepting what they have to say. That's the big one. It may be something you didn't want to hear, or it may be something you never even realized you was doing. But if, you're one now.
Right.
So you want to please each other, and you want to,
Absolutely. And whenever the person, I like what y'all was talking about there, when the other person does become vulnerable and is willing to open up and show some emotion, if that gets thrown back in their face later on, don't expect them to do it again.
Right.
And I think that's what happens to a lot of, well, male and female.
Yeah.
But it definitely is something that if it gets thrown back up, then they're definitely not going to want to do it again.
Right. And I guess we could end the whole thing with this is, for us, something that we're like, okay, we've had this conversation, we're not bringing it back up, like it's squashed, is we literally have created a handshake. So we do our handshake and it never gets brought back up again. Alrighty.
All right, we ended it there, right? No.
Yep.
No, I like that. And when you do communicate this stuff, you may not, I like what you said, you may not necessarily reach 110%, but you've talked about it, you've communicated it, and you get to that place where you're like, okay, we're just going to agree to disagree, do your handshake, bada bing, bada boom. All right. Well, I think we spent
That was a good one.
like 30 minutes on the first one.
Well, the first one. Yeah.
Well, it's a needful one. That's a
Yeah.
conversation we needed to have. And I'll just be honest, we have not touched the surface of that.
Right.
There's a lot of other things you could talk about. We're just trying to give a few guardrails along the way and hit some of the surface here.
Yeah.
But number 5 on the list was financial stress and disagreement. Financial stress and disagreement.
I'm going to exit the room now.
That would be a good idea. Yeah.
Something I would say there, early on in mine and Jessica's relationship, just to give an example, she early on tried to take the bills on and, take care of all that stuff. And then I noticed it was bringing her stress level to such
Yeah.
level that she was like, it was bothering her physically and not just at a stressful point. Like it was overwhelming her, for lack of a better term. So what we did in our relationship was I took on the financial responsibility. That way, because I handle the stress of it better than she does. Not saying that I always handle it well, but I handle it a lot better than she does. And that was my contribution, knowing that I could handle it better than she could, even though she had more of the free time to do it. It was still better for me and her both if I handle it and took that stress off of her.
Right.
So that's an example there that I would give real world what we did to try to cope with some of that, to handle the financial stress side of it.
Yeah, and I think that's good too. I think it, like right now in this, like our society is, women are supposed to be over it. Women are supposed to be like, not the head of the house, but like, I guess the secondary, like the husband is the head of the house, but then the woman is supposed to take care of all those things. It don't have to be like that, because even us, I'm the spender though. That's the issue on our side. But it was so much easier for Jacob to just take over as well. And with you mentioning that, it really did like make me think, oh wow, I really did have anxiety over it, as in like, oh, you know, I only have this much money and I can't really do this. But then I kind of gave it to Jacob, and it's like, he's like, okay, this is what you got, this is what we have, whatever. And it's been so much like less stressful for sure. So, you know, if you're in that boat right there, you know, being a mom, working full time, trying to take care, maybe you need to communicate that and be like, hey, you know, this is really stressful. You think you could take on part of this or whatever?
Yeah. There's just like all these other subjects, there's a lot of area you could cover with this. But I do want to say that I don't know that there is 100% a cure-all method, because I do think each person is different. Their scenarios are different. Their jobs are different. I mean, I think there's different things. Of course, one sometimes may be a spender.
Mm-hmm, I know.
In the sense of if they have like $500, they will spend $499. Sometimes 501.
Hey,
But we won't go there. Anyways,
maybe someone needs to teach me how to do this thing, because that's my mindset. If I've got so much money, honey, I'm going to get it down to the penny.
anyways, and then you also have a saver.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
and they don't mix.
Now here's a good between the two ditches.
For real.
You got a saver on one side and a spender on the other side. Now, I will say, from the being more of the saver point of view, sometimes you can be a little overbearing on that. For instance, like sometimes, and now I'm gonna throw myself under the bus. You'll like this.
I don't know if I will or
Sometimes,
not.
if I want something new, like I was telling a story. I'm gonna give you this funny story. This is a podcast. We're allowed to do this. I was doing a Q&A at the church, and I didn't know this, but there was a fella in the audience later on come to me. He said, "Hey, buddy, you had a rip in your pants the whole time." I was like, "Dude, why didn't you text me?" I was like, "You could have texted me, and I could have like crossed my legs. I could have sat differently, but no, I just sat there wide open, buddy." And what I'm getting at is the next day or two, we were going to get me a new pair of pants. And so sometimes, like, there was no resistance. There was no hold up. I've noticed that when I want something, buddy, she is, "Babe, you go get that. You go, I encourage you, you go get that, and you enjoy it, blah, blah, blah." But if she wants to get something, I really find myself a lot of times being a little selfish and saying, "You don't need that. You don't need that, this, that, and the other." And that's the saver side of me. I used an illustration about candles one time, about how we don't need 55,000 candles at the house, especially when someone struggles to remember to blow them out before you leave the house, right?
Hey, I was gifted by the church
Oh, and you know why?
Yes, but it's been the best thing ever. What is that thing called?
What, the candle warmer you
candle
also leave on
warmer.
when we leave?
Hey, it's better than it being lit.
Yeah, it's going to be real lit one day.
No, it ain't. We leave our microwave on and everything.
Oh.
That ain't a difference.
Anyways, women logic. Yeah, that's where that is. But anyways, we could throw the arguments out there all day long. But I do think that there is a couple good little guardrails that we can throw out here.
Yeah, right. Why don't you just hit a little bit on, like, I know that we have some newlyweds, so touch on that a little bit, like how to work through maybe the finance part of being newlyweds. Can't find the word, but the stress in between that and like how you can help that.
So before he jumps in, I think that needs to be a conversation that is had before the wed part comes in. Like that needs to be a conversation that you have beforehand. I mean, granted, you don't meet somebody and on the first date be like, "Hey, here's my finances. This is
right.
what money I've got," and stuff like that. I'm not saying anything like that. But I mean, if you're to the point that you're engaged, that you're serious about it, you've got a date set, like that's the time you need to hash out stuff like that, rather than going into the marriage and then being like, "Well, now what do we do?" Yeah. You should already have that stuff in place. Like,
I agree.
This is our game plan. This is what we're going to do.
I think that's so smart because, like, I know for us, I think that's something that our parents forget. Like they, they've been married for so long, they forget that that's a struggle in the beginning. Like we lived at home all our lives. They took care of the bills. We don't know what the heck we're doing. We're just thrown into this thing.
Yes.
And so talking about it before you get married and figuring out like how you're going to split this up. Are you going to put a conjoined account? Are you going to have separate accounts? Who's going to pay for what? And try to figure that out before so it's not as stressful. And I highly encourage trying to put a little bit back, like in a savings, so when things happen, like when you need new, no, don't even look. I know I'm giving good advice. I need to take it for myself. I know, but
good thing this is recorded.
No, but thinking back, we're better off. We're better now than we were when we first got married. But like, if we needed new tires, because not everybody have someone they can lean on, like. If we get in a tight spot, we have someone we can lean on, but not everybody has that. So,
right.
Go ahead and have them starting a savings. If that's $20 a paycheck, if that's $20 a month, whatever the case may be, whatever fits your budget. But, having that so if you need new tires or if one of your appliances messes up or something, so you're not so stressed.
I think some of the best advice that I could possibly give is the comparison to like our parents or your grandparents or something that they've worked all their life, they've put things back, and they may be able to eat out at these fancy restaurants all the time or be able to do whatever they want to do, and oftentimes we go into it with the mindset that we can do the same thing, but we forget that they have worked their whole life for that. And so there is a lot of wisdom in what you just said, of putting back and using wisdom.
Yeah. So to piggyback off of what you just said, social media painting this picture, because we've even said ourselves, like we've had high school friends or whatever our age, and we can't hardly keep our head above the water, and it's like they're getting this, they're getting that, new cars, new boats, new house, like all the things. We're like, holy cow, how are they doing this? But they're just going crazy in debt, and you've got to remember that.
Right.
And so it's okay to be on the smaller spectrum. We have a double wide.
Right. That was actually on my notes as the second guardrail, but we'll make that guardrail number one.
There you go.
Is that don't fall into the trap of comparison, whether that be social media or your parents or some other couple. You've got to do you, right? You've got to examine your scenario, your case, your rent, your mortgage, or whatever the case may be. You've got to examine all that, what you're bringing in versus what you're putting out, and be mindful. You don't have to have the best of the best right now. You can have a little bit lower than the best right now and have the best of the best later on. There is wisdom in sacrificing some of that right now. Now, have I always followed that advice? No, but I should, right? I mean, that's good advice, is, sacrificing now so that you can enjoy later. Like we've talked about, kids, and how that whether or not to have a third one or not. And we've talked about this, of how I think 2 is a good stopping place, and while we're still young and they're where they're at. And one of the reasons for that is so that when they grow up, we can have some of that time that we didn't have. Now, we had 3 years together, plus the dating and all that, but I believe, that's something to look forward to, Maybe that didn't tie in too good right here, but the reality is it's thinking long term rather than just thinking 2 days ahead.
For sure.
It's easy to get behind, and it's easy for things to pop up that you don't expect. Nobody expected Helene to come, right?
Right.
Nobody expects their tire to blow out going down the road. But how many times have we had 500 and spent 499 and then we pop a tire?
Yeah.
But
also don't live so tight that you feel like you can't enjoy life.
Yeah, I mean, there's a balance. There's a between the two ditches.
Yes, for sure, for sure.
Wisdom, not going crazy, but not being too awful tight. So
let's say if you want a new boat, just get some kayaks.
Now, I do think that is a good call.
You know, until you
And
are comfortable.
Until you can afford one that has a newer motor. Let's put that out there.
Oh,
We are speaking from-
we are not even going to talk about the boat thing.
Yeah, we are speaking from experience on that. Anyway.
No, I was just adding that in as in like, man, you want this, you want this. Well, you can still have fun and get something cheaper.
Yeah.
I have more fun on the kayak than I do the daggone boat.
Well, yeah, because that thing ain't going to run.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I don't even know
At
if that
least
was...
you can paddle a kayak. You can't paddle a
Dude, if we could
pontoon.
just put this on the podcast of you paddling the daggone boat
Yeah.
with the wind blowing us back 10 feet.
Yeah, every time I paddled forward, we went 10 foot back. But I think guardrail number one is don't fall into the trap of comparison.
Yeah.
Do what works for you. Remember, you are one, so you're not just looking after self no more. You're looking after each other.
Yes.
And then I think another guardrail is sit down and set some goals to work at together. When you make and accomplish goals together, it brings unity. Too often we're working towards goals separately in opposite directions rather than together in the same direction. Right? How many times do we set a certain goal, but we're setting it all by ourselves?
Right.
And yeah, that's encouraging when you accomplish that, but how much more encouraging is it when you sit down together and you set a goal like, hey, we actually do this for around vacation time. Like, I'm going to set a goal that I'm going to pay for this portion of it, and she's going to set a goal to pay for this portion of it. Like, she's going to pay for the activities, maybe some of the eating or the food or whatever, and then I'm going to pay for the hotel, the gas, and so on and so forth. So that's just setting a little goal, and then accomplishing that goal. It brings unity and it brings enjoyment, and you both have invested in it. You're both enjoying it. You're both reaping the benefits of it, and that's been a blessing.
Oh, yeah.
And
That's
it don't throw
fun.
all the pressure on one person too. So that's been really good.
That's one of the funnest things.
Yes. All right. So number 6 on the list was spiritual mismatch or hypocrisy. Now this can very easily happen, especially like if one spouse is saved, for instance, later on. Okay. Remember the triangle method that we always talk about. You've got the Christ up here, and then you've got the husband and the wife down at the bottom. And we always say the closer to God you get, the closer you get to one another as you go up that triangle. Now, a lot of times what you'll see, and we see this actually very often, is the wife being the spiritual leader of the home. So if you use the triangle method on that, a lot of times the wife is up the triangle, and that leaves a big distance and leaves a big gap in between the husband and the wife. And so there's a lot of issue when it comes to spiritual things, because this one may not be where this one is. Now, regardless of the circumstance, I do believe that there needs to be grace. Sometimes we can get so, well, you're not this, well, you're not that, well, you're not doing this right or that right. There is a way to go about it. We want to approach with grace, and we want to approach with mercy. I think a good guardrail to give right here is give them time and grace. Not everyone is as far along as you. Right? Another guardrail that we can mention right here is don't try to make them someone they're not. Too often we're trying to push them to be like another person, which is a sinful, flawed individual, rather than pushing them towards Christ. How many times have we fell into the trap, well, you're not like so-and-so's wife, or you're not like so-and-so husband? Well, no, they're not, because that's not who God created them to be.
Right.
So, spiritual mismatch and hypocrisy can be a very big one. If you're trying to be a witness to your spouse, but then you're cussing him out every night, what difference is that really going to make in their life? And I promise you, they'll be the one to throw it back at you and say, yeah, you really religious, right?
Right.
You know, and that's hard to do, though. That's hard when you get in those moments and they see your flaws and they see your self come out, if you will. Then that's difficult. And you know, some people get into marriage where they are unequally yoked.
Right.
And so that's another can of worms too. You know, praying for your spouse to get saved. And, you know, some people enter into a marriage lost as well, and then one gets saved. And so there's a lot of different scenarios here of spiritual mismatch. Now, I think a big one is not communicating this before marriage. I think definitely this needs to be communicated before, because I mean, you picture like a Christian sitting down with a Buddhist or something, and then eventually they get married, and then come to find out, oh, you ain't going to go to church with me? Well, no, I'm a Buddhist.
Right.
Well, how's that going to pan out with the children? How's that going to pan out with everything you do? Right?
I think as well, if you have a lost spouse and they get saved or whatever, you mentioned this, but offering grace, allowing God to shape them, and them not just, don't try to change them. Don't try to, you can be like, hey, you want to do devotion together and things like that to help them grow in Christ. But as in like, oh, I want you to change in this area, or I don't like the way you do this. I know Cross wouldn't like that. Allow him to change that person on his time.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are, or if you consider yourself, let me put it like this. If you consider yourself further up the triangle, don't try to belittle the person that may be down at the bottom of the triangle. Because if you do that, then that's not encouraging them to come up to where you're at.
Right.
That's just going to keep them there. We want to give them grace and give them mercy and pray that God would draw them unto himself. So due to time, we're actually going to cut this into 2 different episodes. We do want to say thank you for tuning in with us today, and we'll pick up where we left off on the next one. Until next time, keep it between the ditches.
Love y'all.